make sure that every post you make has either a graphic or a video. Literally every one. It'll double your engagement right there.
Welcome to Starve the Doubts. I'm your host, Jared Easley. Our co-host today is Kimanzi Constable from KimanziConstable.com. Aloha, Kimanzi.
Aloha, and all my fellow friends from Starve the Doubts, and of course my bestie, Jared.
Thanks. And today is exciting because we're welcoming back people who've been on the show before, and an exciting new book's coming out called The Art of Social Media, Power Tips for Power Users by Peg Fitzpatrick and Guy Kawasaki. They really don't need an introduction since they've been guests on the show before. But the book offers 100 practical tips, tricks, and insights. Guy and Peg present a ground-up strategy to produce a focused, thorough, and compelling presence on the most popular social media platforms. They guide you through the steps of building your foundation, amassing your digital assets, going to market, optimizing your profile, attracting more followers, and effectively integrating social media and blogging. Peg and Guy, it is a pleasure to have you on the show again. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Was I your first guest, Jared?
You were one of my first guests, Peg.
Shoot, come on. Thought I was your first one.
My first cool guest. How about
that? Okay. Totally lost the moment now. But yes, thank you for having me again.
My pleasure. Okay, so we're going to do some icebreakers here. So we're going to start off with true or false. And we'll give the first one to Guy, but we're not doing favoritism, Peg. But Guy's going to go first. So this is true or false, Guy.
Yeah.
Social media guru is an oxymoron. True or false?
True. No question. True.
Would you be willing to give us a short explanation?
Have a true and false answer? Ooh, this is going to be a tough one.
It's because social media has so many variables, so many things moving at once. That, whatever mood Mark Zuckerberg wakes up in, or Matt Cutts at Google, or who knows at Pinterest, or whatever. Everything is changing so fast. And lots of people, I think, cannot separate correlation from causation. So, at an extreme example, somebody posts something, right after they drank a Diet Coke and it goes viral, and they say, oh, from now on, I'll drink a Diet Coke before I post anything because, that caused it to go viral. So I think that kind of stuff happens all the time. So a very good test, I think, is you should never take the advice of someone who has fewer followers than you.
Oh, your most controversial advice. Sit right out at the beginning.
I know, it just pisses people off when I say that because, let me just explain a little more. So I always see these people who work at quote unquote digital agencies or ad agencies, and they're telling their Fortune 500 clients, the optimal number of times to post once per day to post on Facebook is once per day. And you ask them, how do you know this? And they say, well, I just know it, because once we posted 2 times and we got less clicks per post. And, so they think it's like true science. And then you ask them, well, do you use Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus or Pinterest or Instagram yourself? And they say, no. And I said, so you're telling Fortune 500 brands how many times to post, how to post, all that, but you have 50 followers. Am I getting that correctly? And after that, they usually shut up.
And Guy, I would add, I find that when somebody finds something that works, they pass it along, and then the next person sees it, they pass along, it gets passed along like it's truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, what can I say?
So Peg, here's a true or false for you. This book is for the person who wants to see a return on investment of social media from power users.
Who wants to see a return on investment?
Yes.
That's a tough one. We don't really talk about ROI because Guy and I both come from the hard work gets you everywhere you want to go in life model. And there's really no ROI on how hard you work. It's just you work really hard and good things happen. So I'll say I don't know the answer to that. Is there ROI? What do you think, Guy? False?
Is there an ROI on social media?
There's absolutely a huge ROI on social media, but I mean, of course, we wouldn't spend all our time doing it. So true.
It begs the question, what's the underlying question? Because I could make the case is there an ROI on a Super Bowl commercial? Can Doritos prove that the next day they sold more chips? If Boeing runs an ad for the new 797 or 8007, does the next day do orders flow in for airplanes from Emirates Airlines? when you buy a new conference room table for your board of directors room, is there an ROI? When your president flies and makes a speech at a conference, do you see an ROI? I mean, shit, if you use the ROI test, we'd never do anything.
That being said, we do believe that social media can impact your sales and marketing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said.
So, Guy, I have a question for you, true or false? Photo attachments for posts in Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Facebook should be the same size.
False. Everyone has an optimal size, but I will tell you that any graphic is better than no graphic.
All right, so Guy, does it increase the engagement? Let's just say for Facebook, if you post a picture versus just text, does the image allow less people to see it?
Allow less people to see it? I think
less people on your friends list?
Okay, so this is a really, really complex question. I hope you realize the complexity of what you're saying. So specifically, now Peg might correct me if I got this wrong, but it's so complex. This is why there's no experts. Okay, so I and Peg, I think we agree on this, that of course, we're going to be very specific in this answer. For Facebook, if you have posted two ways, one way will be markedly better. So on Facebook, if you post and you manually add a picture and the link to the source is above the picture in the part that you write the little introduction to the curated post. Okay, if you do it that way, so you manually added a big picture versus on Facebook again only, if you let the link to the source bring in the photo via Facebook and post that photo and you remove the link from above there, then that is far better. Facebook only. Did I get that right, Peg?
Yes, but it does keep changing with Facebook. They're trying to get away. It seems like they're trying to get away from having people post like the quote graphic meme kinds of things. So they keep changing, and they are favoring still images sometimes when they're embedded. Facebook hasn't come out and said, don't do this or don't do that. So it is tricky. We always have images on our Facebook posts, on my page, Guy's page, because they just get more interaction, and it's the same with Google+. Regardless of what any algorithm tells you, you can just tell which of your posts are more popular, and ours always have images.
Interesting. All right, so Peg, this is the last true or false, and it is about images. Okay. A person's profile picture on social media should be symmetrical.
No. That's a false. I learned that in Enchantment from Guy Kawasaki.
Good answer.
It's called the rule of thirds.
Yeah, it's the rule of thirds. But I did read about it in Enchantment first.
So, Guy, we're going to do a finish this sentence now.
Okay.
All right.
I thought we already were doing that.
So, the ideal webcam, headshot, and lighting rig that is best for broadcasting video chats on Google Plus is?
Wow. Well, it depends on how you define the word ideal, right? I think the standalone Logitech camera, I can't tell you I have the model number memorized right now, is the best camera. I use a Logitech, I'm on it right now, a Logitech USB microphone and headphone system. But, I think the better answer to your question is that thinking that whatever is built in to your laptop, i.e. camera and microphone, is optimal is wrong. That if you're truly going to do webinars and truly do hangouts on air and truly do these kind of things, you need to invest in a specific external camera. You need to have a headset with a microphone. You need to get lights in your office. You need to spend about $1,000 if you really want to do it, right. If you don't care, then, use that piece of shit Windows laptop that you have. I don't care.
So, Guy, I should tell you, I used to do a lot of webinars.
Yeah.
And when I first moved here to Maui, I wanted people to see where I was at and to see the palm trees and that. So I did them outside. And the first few went great. But then, the next few after that, there was always neighborhood kids, shirtless neighborhood kids running through while I'm on the live webinar.
Yep.
I would not do that. But also, by definition there, probably the light is coming from behind you, right, when you do that?
Yep.
So, not optimal.
No, definitely not.
So Peg has an optimal, ideal webcam setup because she recently posted a video on YouTube of her unboxing the new book. And so, Peg, for you, what was it like for you to see your name on the cover of the physical book for the first time?
Oh, I totally freaked out. I'm glad I made a little video of it because I was really excited. Now I can relive it whenever I want on YouTube. It was amazing. I am a lifelong reader. Reading has been my favorite thing since I picked up a book. When I was little, I used to walk to the library by myself and carry home as many books as I could. And I think I was like 6. I don't know why my mom let me do it, but she was back in the day when I guess it was safe for your little kids to wander around with books. So for me to have an actual book with my name on it, I mean, it's a huge thing. Plus, I just really, really love this book. Guy and I have a great time working together and, having it turn into this awesome project. Topping off all the other millions of awesome projects that we do. It's exciting. So it's hard to explain it.
One of the quotes that the book opens up with, it's a Hitchhiker's Guide series. It says, the quality of any advice anybody has to offer has to be judged against the quality of life they actually lead. So, Guy, would you be willing to explain the purpose of this quote and how it pertains to social media?
Well, that was a subtle way of me telling you that most social media experts are bullshit. Because, the way you should interpret that is, okay, so if you're listening to some expert tell you how to be engaging and how to succeed in social media and blah, 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 and you look at this miserable person with 50 followers and she's like trolling and getting into arguments and all that kind of stuff, you have to ask yourself now, why would I listen to someone who has a life like that? That's what I'm saying. But Peggy has tried to make me more subtle in my old age. So
it's really hard.
Yeah, that's a freaking full-time job. Yeah.
So Guy, let me ask you a question, because I got into this. There's a lot going on in the news right now in a lot of different situations, and a lot of them aren't positive. Mm-hmm. Do you completely stay away from that stuff? Like stay away from the political stuff that is going to just drain you to get into that conversation?
Well, no, sometimes he posts that on purpose.
Peggy, you make it sound like I'm trolling.
I'm kidding. I was kidding.
Let's just say I feel strongly about a few things, and I'm not willing to take a lot of crap for it. I mean, I am willing to take crap, and I am willing to create controversy. So, sometimes I wake up in the morning and, I read that the NRA says the way to reduce violence in schools is to give every teacher a gun. I just cannot wrap my mind around that. I just can't sit still and say, so you're telling me that you want teachers to get there in the morning, work all day, prepare lessons, and carry a 44 so that if 1 in a billion chance some nutcase comes into the school, they're going to whip out their 44 Magnum, blow the kid away, and, back to normal. And I can't wrap my mind around that. So I can't leave that kind of stuff alone. And, when somebody goes up and says that global warming is a myth, and I can't leave those things alone. And I know that, the conservatives are going to attack me and all that kind of stuff. But, I use it as kind of mental exercise. I like taking people on every once in a while.
But you do always keep in mind that you work with brands and you're conscious of, Guy doesn't just post things to be controversial, just to drive traffic. It's not that kind of thing. It is things that Guy feels passionate about. The last election was a perfect example. You had a strong opinion and you were like, should I share this? And you actually thought about it for a couple of days before you did.
But I did do it.
You did do it. Here's the thing about that most people don't think about. It's a lot bigger responsibility when you have millions, literally millions of people following what you say. It's a lot different than just posting something on your Facebook wall for your friends and family.
So true. The other thing is, I want to interject into my stream, because some of it is automated and some of it is virtual. Other people are posting for me. But I also want to make sure that people understand that, like it or not, Guy does express his real opinion. So the people who post for me and some automated stuff, they would never, ever touch something like the NRA or women's rights or, Sarah Palin not having a passport but thinks she can run the country, these kinds of things. So they would never do that, but Guy doesn't hesitate. And so I want people to I also do this when I post pictures where I travel around the world. that cannot be virtualized. That cannot be fake. That's me, right? So I like to throw a lot of that in there so that I want people, if they follow me, they just never know what to expect. Like I was in Australia and I get to this hotel really late and I wake up in the morning and I see that there's a mirror above my bed. And I was like, wow. This is in a casino in the Gold Coast, right? So I say now, man, this could be the ultimate selfie. So I took a picture of me laying in bed, fully clothed, of course. And
Thankfully.
Yeah. So, I don't think Virgin America or Procter & Gamble or Cadbury is posting selfies in a mirrored bed. But I want to do this so people just never know what to expect.
So this brings up a good question. This is for you, Peg. Should companies outsource their social media work to a digital marketing agency or put interns in charge of it?
That's a double-edged question there. Okay, so I'll answer it this way. I feel like if you need help with your social media, that you should get help with your social media. But before you choose to have someone else doing your social media, you should look at their social media to see what they do. Are they posting great content? Are they getting a lot of engagement? Do they have thousands and thousands of people following them on Twitter? If they have 150 people following them on Twitter and they have 5 tweets, then why would you hire that person to do your social media? I do think that there are people that need help, like Mr. Kawasaki, for example. He's busy. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend agencies. I think if you can find an independent person to work with you that can really get the flavor of who you are and what you want to do with your social media, I think that's much better than trying to go with an agency who it seems like takes 3 times as long and charges 4 times as much. That's my opinion. And interns, I say, if you can find someone awesome that you can work with, amen. My daughter's in college, and she's a computer science major, and she helps me do stuff. And I love working with her. And she loves YouTube and Tumblr, so those are not my favorites, so it helps me a lot.
I think the dangerous thing about interns is that the concept that a young person who is on Facebook and Vine and Snapchat obviously knows social media, so we'll just let that person handle our brand. I think that is a really, stupid thing. That would be as stupid as this person is 50 years old, so we should obviously let them manage our bank account because they know what they're doing. I mean, that is just as dangerous and stupid. Good
example.
Yeah, exactly. For example, me. So
I would let you manage my money.
Yeah, well, okay, you have in a sense. So
I stand by what my recommendation is. That being said, you could have an intern who would be amazing. It's not that all agencies are bad or all interns are bad, but I have a client who, they're not my client, but it's somebody who does social media, and they have hired their child who is a college graduate to do it. And this person isn't interested in social media at all. And she's a digital native. She's 23, has a college degree, and she's like, oh, I hate Facebook. I always forget to go check it. And she's responsible for their company's Facebook presence, Instagram, and Twitter, and she doesn't like it at all. So just age does not preclude love for something nor knowledge of it.
All right, so let's chat for a minute about what happens with various brands.
We're overwhelming Jared with our answers, guys.
No, I'm a fan. This is interesting.
Jared, you need to be open and transparent, and you need to engage. How's that? Have you ever heard that before?
Guy, I was going to ask you to manage my money.
Yeah.
But
you should first check if I have more money than you, because if I don't, you shouldn't let me manage your money, right?
Well said.
That's why I let you manage mine, guys. I know you have more than I do.
All right, so sometimes companies get it wrong. There's various brands that have tried social media strategies and they've experienced major backfire. So, Guy, what is your recommendation to the listeners who attempt a social media strategy and it backfires?
Well, you may find this answer somewhat surprising, but I don't think that backfires are necessarily so bad. And that, at least if something backfires, at least you're trying. At least you're going to learn something, right? So the example I like to cite is like take a nightmare like you had a musician's guitar and you broke it in baggage and you refused to replace it. So the guy wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars, and 100 million people watched that. And oh my God, this is like the worst case social media problem ever, right? Viral, great song, all about your airline being crappy at handling baggage. Okay? Do you think that moved the needle at all for United's reservations? Not at all. I mean, do I fly on United? Every day. I mean, so, that's like the worst case, right? So I think people kind of need to chill out that, yeah, you can make mistakes, and like a week later, I'll give you a great example. So during the Boston Marathon.
Oh, no.
What? Should I tell this or not?
No, go ahead. I'm kidding. Go ahead. It happened.
Okay. So during the Boston Marathon bombing, okay, which is a tragedy, okay? So I have tweets scheduled like 32 hours in advance, all right? Because, that's the way I roll. And so some of those tweets, shall I say, were not somber and serious during this tragedy. So some social media experts called me out. I said, Guy, how dare you tweet something like this that's not about this tragedy? This whole nation is in a state of tragic concern. And so, that's the kind of thing that happens. That could be a big social media problem. Or it could turn into, basically, the guy ranting to himself. So I think social media is a very forgiving place, and there's so much action that, even if somebody writes a song about you that 100 million people listen to, it's not clear to me it's going to do you permanent damage. Not the answer you expected, huh?
No. Sometimes people feel they need to respond, though. But I get it. Yep.
Guy actually did respond. That was interesting. That was like 4 super stressful days for me. And Guy was like, I'm going to hockey. I'm going to hockey. It's fine. I was like, no, it's horrible. That was just another instance of Guy being right.
So the message is always keep experimenting. Yes, you'll make mistakes.
Yeah,
so
it's
what?
Not the end of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So a more dialed back example of this is that I, through an automated process, repeat my tweets 3 or 4 times. Exact same tweet 3 or 4 times, 8 hours apart. Okay. And it means that basically we get 3 or 4 more times the click-throughs than if we had one tweet. Unfortunately, there are some people that this pisses off because they sit there for 8 hours and 1 minute and they see a tweet repeated. And they think, oh my God, in the internet where everything is supposed to be designed exactly specifically for you because you are entitled, right? They are just appalled. How dare Guy enter my tweet stream twice in 8 hours with something identical, wasting my valuable time. And there are a handful of people that, go off like this. And my response to them is, if you have seen me repeat a tweet 8 hours apart, you need a life. This is your problem, not mine. And they just can't relate to that. And, so here we have a very rational choice. I can either get 10,000 clicks or I can get 2,500. And if I get 10,000 clicks, I'll piss off 20 people. And if I get 2,500 clicks, I won't piss off 25 people. Which one do you think we choose?
Now, the funniest thing about that advice, Guy, is I think when I researched that on the internet, wasn't it like 2008 or 9 that you wrote about that?
I was saying that before Twitter was created.
Yeah. And so at the time and since then, everybody's like, oh my gosh, now 2014, a few people have decided to test your theories besides you. Yeah. And they're like, wow, this really works. It's funny. Like, why did you wait so long to try it? Experimenting and finding what works for you is best. Sometimes you can take someone else's thing and it saves you a bunch of time and experimentation yourself.
Well, we do that. We take other people's stuff and try it.
Of course.
But, what we're trying to communicate is that you shouldn't listen to really anybody, not even us, okay? But just try stuff. I mean, okay, so now you heard me say that, okay, so what people should do if they're listening to this and they have like some curiosity and really want to optimize things, they should say, okay, guys, so we're going to take an identical tweet. We're going to use 4 different bit.ly links so we can track how many people click on each link. We're going to tweet it out 4 times, 8 hours apart, right? So over 32 hours, we're going to tweet it out 4 times identically with 4 different bit.ly links. And let's see. Let's see if Guy's right. Do we get X and then X, and then X, and then X, so we got 4X? Or does it go X, and then X minus 500, X minus 1,000, X minus 2,000? So by the fourth time, nobody clicks on it. Just try the experiment. I don't care if you prove me wrong, but at least try it. Don't just say, oh, the social media expert at this digital agency with 50 followers said the optimal number of times to tweet is 1. Okay? Because God did not tell that to Moses, who told it to her. I promise you.
One caveat to what Guy is saying is that he tweets a lot of content. So if you look at his Twitter stream, you don't see one tweet and then 8 hours the same exact tweet. So this isn't a balanced diet of social media content. If you retweet, if you reshare something more than once, it's totally fine. Yeah, there's a lot of content in between there.
But Peg, I mean, seriously, who in the world, I mean, how often do you think someone goes and clicks on a person's name in Twitter and looks at his entire Twitter stream?
We differ on that because I actually do that. Yeah? When I'm looking for, yes, I do. Jared, do you ever do that?
It depends. If it's someone that I'm learning from and that I think is modeling success.
I forgot. Yeah, Jared and I are stalkers.
So I would read all of Peg's tweets, yes.
He does read all of my tweets and all my blog posts. That's okay, Jared. You can keep doing that. I'm just kidding. No, but what I'm saying is you still want to share other stuff other than just your own content. Sure. Aside, that's just to add that into the mix. It's not just that you share only that one tweet every 8 hours. You have a lot of great stuff you share with that, right?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Last time I checked.
Yes, you do.
So, Peg, Guy said something interesting earlier, and I want to piggyback off of that a little bit. You connected with Guy, and I'm sure some other very cool people. Would you tell somebody that's trying to build their business, build an online presence, that connecting with an influencer is a good strategy?
That's funny. Yeah. I have to say, though, that is never a strategy of mine. I connected with Guy on Twitter because I was hosting a book club about enchantment. So my goal wasn't, I want to connect with Guy Kawasaki. I actually tweeted because I wanted to have a book club with my friends and talk about Guy's book. And I never actually thought he was going to respond to my tweet. I was just like, yay, I'm having a book club. Let's all come and talk about enchantment. And the first person that responded happened to be Guy. So I have to say, I am not somebody who, I do connect with a lot of great people. I think that's because I am naturally a connector. Like I love, and I have learned from so many people, which is part of how I've connected. And doing book club and reading all these people's books, I connected with a lot of the authors of the books. But I don't think I am, so I don't go out of my way to connect with influencers. And I'm always wary of that because I've had a couple people who, have like influencers stalked me in a bad way. And I'm wary of the practice because of some people are abusing it. But I think it's great to connect with people that you can learn from, whether they have more followers than you or less followers than you. I don't necessarily look at people as influencers as like people that I want to connect with. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
I'd do it. I'd do it all the time.
You would connect with influencers?
Shit, yeah. Okay, so Peggy is obviously a better person than I am. But
I don't think so.
But you know what? It's not whether you try to connect with an influencer towards some purpose, promoting yourself or your product or your service. It's how you do it. That's the question.
Yeah.
And so this done right is an art. Mm-hmm. This done wrong is a travesty. So I think the debate is over whether you should suck up to influencers. The question is how to suck up to an influencer. We could write a whole book on that, but
we could. But I don't know.
That'd be a great title, How to Suck Up to Influencers.
And I realize we went a little bit long here, but let me ask you this, Guy. How many people try to connect with you? And like
a day or a minute?
Per day, about, 2, 3, 4, 5 a day or so. And so, the next logical question is, so when does it work, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll give you some instances when it works, which is I like to see, every day I get several that say, Dear Gary, as you know, engagement, transparency, and openness is important in social media. My client, Joe Blow, of Blow Industries, has written a book, How to Give Good. No, I won't say that. How to be successful the Blow way. We are scheduled for publishing with Simon & Schuster in the fall. He would love if you would write a blurb for him or review his book. Okay, that I just throw away. And it's because
do the one. All right, after this one, do the one where the guy said this thing saying how much you helped him and.
Well, let's not get into that. So what lacks here is that if you thought about it, so Trixie, I don't want to be misogynist or, sexist, but Trixie or Biff, who wrote this heartfelt pitch to me, has no clue who I am. I don't know, they just got my email address and they're writing to me like, as you know, social media is important. That would be like writing to, I don't know, Michael Jordan saying, as you know, Michael, basketball is popular in the United States. And so it's so stupid that I just can't handle it. So that's the negative, where you obviously don't know who I am, haven't done any research, whatever. It's just, it's just one of 2,000 you sent out that day. So those don't work. So the ones that work are something like, this is the art of the suck up. So it has to be like, guy, I know that you love hockey, and I played at the University of Michigan, so I could tell that, I agree with you. Hockey is the world's greatest sport. And I happen to be representing Joe Blow, also a hockey enthusiast, and he wrote a book called The Blow Way. That would get through. At least the guy figured out that I like hockey. Another would be, I attended your speech at the Gartner thing, and by far it was the best keynote of the event. And I just wanted to reach out and thank you for, a very entertaining 1 hour. And by the way, my client has written a book called The Blow Way. And, if you're interested, let me know. That would get through. So it's just like, give it like 10 minutes of effort.
And so you're talking about...
And go back again to enchantment, because you have a great section in there on how to send an email that gets read.
Yeah,
and I use that too.
So I think the most important part of the email is the subject line, right? And so I have to see a subject line that somehow tells me this person did the homework. Like, I saw your speech at Gartner, or I saw your speech at AdTech, or, something. I mean, crying out loud, you could Google me and find out where I spoke and just lie and just say, yeah, I saw your great speech at, wherever you found Google said I spoke recently. And like, well, how do I know? You think I'm going to check the attendance records to see if you were really at the Gartner conference? And so, do something like that and tie it to hockey, or tie it to, you read my book, so I'm interested, or something like that. Oh my God.
You could take a selfie in an Australian ceiling mirror.
You could do that. Say, yeah, here's my selfie with my mirrored bed. Yeah, I mean, at least it shows that you did the homework, right? I mean, is that too much to ask?
Let me ask you, Guy, for the person that's not coming like with like assistant or something like that, like you're explaining, my client, like if it was just me, Kimanzi, trying to connect with Guy. And let's say, because I write for a few places, Guy, like I write for the Huffington Post. If I wrote an article about the Huffington Post, all about you, just like, saying Guy is the greatest thing ever, and then I sent that to you, would I be able to get through to you?
You would, but I would not advise doing that because, I'm not looking for that kind of suck up. I mean,
okay.
what would be, I think people have to understand that influencers, at least me anyway, I'm always looking for great content. Believe it or not, I'm looking for stuff. I just don't believe that The Blow Away by Joe Blow, published by Blow Press, is good content. So if you wrote an article about, hey, Guy, I know you're from Hawaii. I know you're visiting the islands all the time. I just wrote this piece, the 10 best places to eat in Maui. Okay? I would pay attention to that. So it doesn't have to be sucking up to me. You just have to show some value. So, this is the 10 best iOS 10 or whatever iOS is on, like 8. The 10 best iOS tips, or the 10 best Lollipop Android tips, or the 10 places you have to eat in Honolulu before you die. Or, give me content that it should pass what Peg and I call the reshare test. So you tell me that you wrote an article, and this article should be so good that when, people post it, other people will repost it. That's, because am I willing to risk my reputation that something that you wrote for the Huffington Post called the 10 best places to eat in Hawaii, are you willing to risk your reputation by resharing it? And assuming you're not a psychopath, If it does pass that test, probably we would share it too.
Guy and Peg, this has been amazing. We really appreciate this. Again, the book is The Art of Social Media, Power Tips for Power Users. I'm going to start with Peg and then end with you, Guy. Do you have any final thoughts for the listeners?
Final thoughts. Experiment and test things and have fun with your social media.
Okay. Now my turn?
Yes, sir.
Too bad, because I was going to say the same damn thing.
He was going to say buy our book.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true. Now, my advice is make sure that every post you make has either a graphic or a video. Literally every one. It'll double your engagement right there.
Wow, well said. Peg and Guy, thank you so much for being on the show, and best wishes with the book launch.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Experiment and test things and have fun with your social media.